Welcome back to the Al Monitor Brief. I'm Adam Lucente. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan visited Ethiopia on Tuesday for talks with Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, marking the first visit by the Turkish leader to the strategic East African state in more than a decade. Speaking to reporters in Addis Ababa, Erdogan cautioned Ethiopia against following Israel in recognizing Somaliland's independence from Somalia. Now, why would Erdogan say this in Ethiopia? Well, the trip comes at a time of considerable tensions in the Horn of Africa. Israel became the first country to formally recognize Somaliland's independence from Somalia last December, leading to condemnation from Turkey and much of the Arab League. However, Ethiopia has historically had good ties with the breakaway state and is reportedly considering recognition itself. Ethiopia and Somalia, on the other hand, have long been in a state of conflict. Turkey fits in as a key partner of Somalia, and Ankara has key interests in the Horn of Africa country that relate to its outreach to Africa as a whole. To help make sense of all this, I spoke to Al Monitor's correspondent in Ankara, Ezgi Akin. Ezgi takes us through the strategy behind Erdogan's visit, how Turkey-Ethiopia engagements relate to wider Horn of Africa currents, and more. Hope you enjoy. Ezgi, welcome back to the Al Monitor Brief.
Thanks for having me, Adam.
Ezgi, obviously there's a lot going on in the Horn of Africa, but what do you think prompted this visit, and what were Erdogan's main objectives with the trip to Addis Ababa?
Yes, Adam, as you mentioned, Erdogan's visit to Ethiopia came at a critical point. First of all, let's mention his trip to Ethiopia was his first trip to the Horn of Africa in over a decade. He last visited the country in 2015, and this visit came after 2 months Israel recognized Somaliland. And Ethiopia has been reportedly also mulling whether to recognize Somaliland or not. Now, Somaliland is a region of Somalia, but in the 1990s it declared its independence from Somalia. And no other country except Israel has recognized the breakaway region as a separate country as of now. Turkey, meanwhile, is one of the strongest advocates of Somalia's territorial integrity. So, one of the main objectives we can say for the visit was that to caution Addis Ababa against recognizing Somaliland.
And as a quick follow-up, I mean, why is Somalia so important to Turkey? Is it simply because that's where they base their operations in Africa? What is the nature of that relationship?
Well, Somalia hosts one of the largest Turkish military bases overseas. It gives Turkey a critical military foothold in the Red Sea. Somalia also serves as a cornerstone of Turkey's Africa outreach. I mean, it has been a stepping stone for Turkey's outreach to the other African regions. And that's why Turkey strongly supports territorial integrity of Somalia, and it has been leading the efforts to convince Ethiopia to fully respect Somalia's territorial integrity. In 2024, Addis Ababa, in fact, pledged to recognize Somaliland in exchange for Red Sea access via Somaliland territory. That deal between Somaliland and Ethiopia was put on hold after Turkey brokered an alternative deal between Mogadishu and Addis Ababa to secure Ethiopia's Red Sea access via Somalia's territory.
Interesting. And back to Ethiopia, what is that country's importance to Turkey, and how has that relationship developed over time?
In addition to being Somalia's neighbor, Ethiopia is also becoming central to Turkey's Africa strategy. It's one of Ankara's largest economic partners on the continent. Also, more than 200 of Turkish firms are operating there, and Turkey is the second biggest foreign investor in Ethiopia, foreign investor country in Ethiopia. The two countries have also strong defense ties. They signed a military cooperation framework agreement in 2021. And after that deal, Turkey sold unknown numbers of Bayraktar drones to Ethiopia in its fight with Tigray militants, for example. So, in addition to regional context, Turkey and Ethiopia have, share also important cooperation and defense ties.
And looking at the wider picture, I mean, how does Turkey view all these tensions in the Horn of Africa? Like, is this a major concern for Turkey? And what do you think is their main strategy as this all develops?
Turkey rejects the unilateral recognition of Somaliland, seeing such move as destabilizing for Somalia and broader Horn of Africa, but also detrimental to its interests in the region. Turkey has a series of national interests in international interests in Somalia. For example, it recently sent a deep sea drilling ship vessel to the Somali waters for drilling activities for hydrocarbon resources in the Somali waters. As we mentioned earlier, Somalia is the host of one of the largest military bases of Turkey overseas. That base gives Turkey a strategic military foothold in the Red Sea. So, in a way, safeguarding Somalia's stability is also somehow equals to safeguarding Turkey's interest in the region.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with Ezgi Akin after this short break.
Today's transformation of the Middle East is at the center of global geopolitics. Whether you're an analyst, diplomat, executive, or academic, you need the best reporting and analysis to understand what's really happening on the ground and what it means for the world. Al Monitor is the award-winning independent leader in Middle East news. From Riyadh to Beirut, Abu Dhabi to Doha, and Baghdad to Tehran, our team of over 100 expert journalists report daily on the top stories driving the regional trends. Download our mobile app and subscribe to Al Monitor to follow what leaders and decision makers are reading every day. Go to almonitor.com. That's AL-MONITOR.com, and use promo code POD25, POD25 for a discount.
Okay, we're back. Ezgi, at the risk of making this more complicated, I want to bring up Egypt and how that relates to Ethiopia and Turkey. Obviously, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, or GERD, has angered Egypt as they see it as threatening their water levels in the Nile. At the same time, Turkey has done outreach of its own to Egypt recently, and relations are improving there. How do you think Erdogan's outreach to Ethiopia might affect relations with Egypt, or how does it factor into the Turkish thinking?
A good question, Adam. And as you said, Turkey and Egypt relations have been on the mend in the past few years. In fact, Erdogan's previous foreign trip was to Egypt in January, and I guess we spoke on that too in this podcast. In the Horn of Africa, both Ankara and Cairo do not have conflicting interests. They have different priorities, I can say. Yes, Egypt is concerned about its water security due to the Renaissance Dam, but Turkey is not taking sides in that conflict. And on broader Horn of Africa region, we see that positions of Ankara and Cairo are increasingly aligning with each other. For example, in addition to Ankara, Cairo also strongly denounced Israeli move to recognize Somaliland.
Ezgi, thanks a lot for your time, and we look forward to more of your reporting on all things Turkish foreign policy.
Thank you, Adam. It was a pleasure as usual.
Thanks for listening to the Al Monitor Brief. Be sure to follow Al Monitor for more on the stories impacting the Middle East. Until next time, I'm Adam Lucente.